right, everybody, welcome back to Kado Games. The mics are hot, and we are here talking about Disney Lorcana. And I am blessed to have the winner of DLC Melbourne, DKP. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. I feel great. Winning the DLC boosted a lot of my confidence, of course, and also it's such a relief, after all this grind. And after my third try, I finally got it. So
Yeah, that's got to feel really good. So before we get going, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where they can find you, because I know you're working on content. You've got some social media channels. So just plug all your stuff and give us a little history about yourself.
Yeah, so you can find me on, like, if you saw my name ever, like on Twitter, Facebook. I have my channel is also the same name basically, but I use the handle DKP Lorcana. And so you can find my channel. I have a Metafy Fame PHAME. There you can find my in-depth stuff, or like if you want a 1-1 session with me, or if you have questions, just message me on like Twitter or Facebook, whatever socials. And I try my best always to answer as quick as possible. And yeah, overall, I'm pretty much grinding like content right now, trying my best to alleviate the level of the community, because what I've seen the most right now is the lack of educational stuff, I would say, on as content. Like there are some on Lorcana on YouTube, but if you, let's say, want to start out and just put like Lorcana improving Lorcana, there's not much coming up on YouTube. So that's where I wanna basically concentrate my content on, so I can help people to get better, or at least get to reach their goals, how I reach my goals in this game.
Okay, that is super cool. So tell us a little bit about your history with trading card games, because I know Lorcana is not your first TCG.
Yeah, exactly. I started out with Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like first with Magic, but I only played it for like 2 months or so. But it helped me to get into the a bit more competitive side of doing TCG or doing things competitive, because before that I wasn't like doing anything competitive. So Magic put me into it. I learned how to trade cards, and I learned how to look up the value and ordering cards, how to look up for meta decks and so on, because that's everything we take for granted, right? But it's an entire process, like to learn these kind of stuff. And then I started Yu-Gi-Oh! From just visiting the locals for fun, and then I saw how all the people played. It kind of hooked me, and the fact that everybody is meeting up for like for a Friday or Saturday and just playing card game, against each other for packs, and that looked so much fun. And I always wanted to be in such a community where you just do something like this. So I joined Yu-Gi-Oh!, played for years. After I started Yu-Gi-Oh!, like in the next year already, like I started in the end of 2015, and directly in 2016 I started playing all the major events, regionals and so on, YCSs, which are basically the DLCs of Lorcana, and just building my circle, like friendships. I still have friends from when I started like 10 years ago. It's not that long, 8 years ago, 2016. And they're still like good friends. I still talk with most of them, like right now, today, yesterday, and so on, right? And that's such a beautiful thing about TCGs, that you sometimes just find those circles, find friendships that will hold like probably forever. And yeah, I still follow the Yu-Gi-Oh! Site. Like for example, last weekend there was a big major event in Birmingham. I didn't attend because I was still like too tired from the Australia travel. I didn't want to go there. I could have played for fun, I guess, but then, just going there super tired, losing out like 0-3 or something, is not really fun. So I just decided against it. But yeah, while everybody was playing, I was still following, chatting, like cheering them up. I even pushed one guy to win, but unfortunately lost in top 16. So That's unfortunate. But else, I played until basically 2024 in June or May. My last event was the French National. This was basically right before the European National, Continental. And yeah, I just was a bit frustrated. There were many problems in the Yu-Gi-Oh community itself, or like in the game itself. The pricing, the meta that was going on was really, really bad. Tier 0, tier 0.5 meta, like one deck was dominating so much that it basically took out the fun of the game. And yeah, many things went wrong, and I decided to I wanted to change switch, but it's really difficult to switch a game when you are like basically in a rabbit hole, like when you're in your bubble, in your niche of your game. It's really hard to switch because you need new friends, basically, right? You need someone to travel with, and so on. And for Lorcana, like one guy motivated me, like a prominent Yu-Gi-Oh player, actually, Hani Javari, and he just had a talk with me for 1 hour, and he just made me switch in 1 hour. That was crazy. He made me like, Lorcana is a new game. That's your chance to achieve greatness there. Also, the monetary wise, the pricing is so much better than Yu-Gi-Oh. Also, the deck that is meta also suits you so well, like the Ruby Sapphire. He told me to play Ruby Sapphire. I had no clue, right? I had no clue where to start. I almost started playing Emerald Steel, but I'm so glad I didn't, because the deck is, for me, it's boring. So for others, don't. But for me, it was really boring. So I'm really glad I didn't start with that one. And yeah, he just pushed me into it, and then I just started out. Funny enough, I looked into DLC tickets. It was at that point, it was like 2 a.m. in Germany. I looked at the PPG page where they sold the tickets, right? And for DLC Fort Worth, the sale was 2 weeks ago. And I pressed on the ticket and on the link, and suddenly they had one ticket. And I just bought it, I got it, and then was sold out again. So I just got a random ticket, and it was insane. I was like, wow. So I got that, and what then happened was I started. I got the DLC Bochum ticket. I started out going to DLC Bochum. Then I went to DLC Fort Worth. Like in Bochum, I didn't top, and I barely scraped by. I had I need one win more to get in, basically. And yeah, I just couldn't get it, and that bothered me a bit, because I was like, oh, that's the 2-game format is so difficult and so on. And I don't know, it didn't felt like it was in my control, but that was just a lie. Like that, they were just excuses, because in the end I only drew twice, so it wasn't even the problem of the 2-game format. It was just me. I misplayed a lot, and my journey could have ended quite early. I must say, because in DLC Fort Worth, because the traveling is not cheap, right? I just told myself, yo, if I cannot top here, or like at least get like my money back, like break even, I probably won't do single DLC else, because I told myself I would try every single DLC that's left. At that point, there were 6 left, without Australia, because at that time we didn't know. So 6 left, and I was like, okay, if I miss out on this one, I maybe have to rethink my plan to go to every single one in NA. Like the European ones are easy, right? But not the NA ones. But then suddenly I just got to top 16. Like I had such a run in Dallas Fort Worth. It was like I was finished by round 6. I had 501, and I didn't have the courage to go for the 6 win or the higher seating. It was my first top, I was happy to even get there. I probably should have pushed. Like in hindsight, I should have pushed, but it was my first top, so I didn't want to risk anything. And yeah, overall I ended up like I don't remember the placing, but it was 18 or so. 504 was decent. I got seed for the first round at least. And I got top 16, got my invite, so my goal was fulfilled. Unfortunately, Edmund Chu beat me in top 16, so no Mickey for me. But again, it was like first top, really fine. And then from that time on, I was like, I will go to every single DLC because I make my money's worth for this travel. I got extra money with the promos too. So now what I can do is literally I can just finance my next travel basically, and just with the promos, and then it just can keep rolling. And then the next event, I got top 8, just top directly again, and got my Mickey. That was insane run. I almost went out because I needed to win my last one, and I won it 2-0. So I was like 6-1-2 or something. Yeah, 6-1-2, I think. Yeah, that one pushed me really hard into the realm of I will go to every event.
Now you won. So you started, it was a little rocky, you kept on pushing, you got to that top cut, you got to day 2, you got to top 16, top 8, you get your Mickey. Now you've won. So what's that journey like, going from I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player, now you're a DLC champion and you're invited to Worlds?
Yeah. Feels great, like, not gonna lie. All the grind I put in, because there were like many testing hours. I was always grinding Yu-Gi-Oh. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, I grinded Dueling Book. That's our sim basically.
Yeah.
Not official. Yeah, not official. But I grinded, like, sometimes I just grinded for no reason. Like just play for fun. But while doing so, and while doing this kind of grinds, I also learned a lot about how to approach the game, how to approach testing in general. Yeah, and this is I think this is important, because then I realized that putting in the hours and so on is always great, but you need to have a structure, right? Like, you need a goal when testing, and you need to know what you're looking for during testing. And this is what I took from Yu-Gi-Oh. In Yu-Gi-Oh itself, I was still like decently successful, I would say. The only thing that held me back was that I was playing like rogue decks basically for some time, but I had my own personal reasons for that. But it kind of helped me back. I could have played the best deck at the time, but I didn't. So yeah, that was a bit bad for my scores, I guess. But yeah, else coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, I think I took much out of Yu-Gi-Oh to apply for Lorcana, even though the games are vastly different. I would say just compared to like a complete new player, I already know how to get my cards, trade, even though I don't trade in this game at all. How to hold myself during the tournament, like nutrition, how much I have to drink, and then do other small stuff to keep me like at the top. And yeah, like, else, I enjoy the community much more than Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's fair.
So much more friendly, it's like more chill, and there are many things I really don't miss. I think about it.
That's fair. I've been to quite a few Yu-Gi-Oh! YCSs. I used to play competitively back in like 2011 for a while. So I understand the concept of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a little bit rougher. There's a lot of theft, and the people aren't always very nice, where Lorcana's much more relaxed. People are very nice. They're professional, but they're not like... It feels like Yu-Gi-Oh players are trying to shark you all the time. They're trying to get an extra $1 out of your trade. They're trying to get an extra card. Like, it's just, they'll take any.
That happens a lot.
Oh yeah,
that happens a lot. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But some of my best friends are still Yu-Gi-Oh players, and yeah, we use Dueling Book and Master Duel, and we just play GOAT format and have fun. So let's talk a little bit about the dynamics between Yu-Gi-Oh and Lorcana. So Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot more player interaction. The power level is a lot higher. There's, tier 0 decks. There's like unbreakable boards. There's all kinds of crazy interactions. And then Lorcana is a lot more single player. It's a lot more solitaire. There are interactions in how you challenge and how you use actions, like in songs and things like that. But like, what is it about Lorcana that you enjoy so much? considering so many people, the average person playing a TCG, they want player interaction. They want the chain, they want the stack from Magic, they want you to do something, and then the opportunity to respond with like a counter spell, a trap card, something like that. And in Lorcana, that doesn't really exist. You kind of do what you want, and then your opponent responds on their turn.
Yeah. So coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, like that's like also something that I mentioned before with the rabbit hole and your niche. Like if you asked a Yu-Gi-Oh player that is really deep in the game right now, which most of them are, they will always use the same argument when you say, "Oh, let's play Pokemon or kind of whatever." They say it's like, "I don't want to play Solitaire. I want interaction. I want my hand traps and so on." But the thing is, these kind of cards are only necessary because the game got so infinitely faster than before. Like if you play like the older formats where you play mostly like trap cards, which are also interaction but infinitely slower, of course, it's so much different, like than the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's something that people like, I don't know, they are realizing that, of course, but it's also something they don't actively think about, and that's just the game is like too convoluted, too difficult for no reason. Like it's literally just too difficult in terms of like you need to know so many rulings, you need to know so many card texts and so on just to have the baseline. It's not even that you are good. It's literally the baseline. It's like you can be really bad in Yu-Gi-Oh and still know all the rulings, but you can still be super bad. So that's the thing. And coming from Yu-Gi-Oh to something like Lorcana, you don't even understand, or like most people don't even understand what I went through. It's like I was sitting at my first DLC in Bochum. At that point I had no no prior tournament. Means I didn't play locals or whatnot. And what happened was I played, and every single time my opponent, while I was playing, fumbled with their card or something, I twitched, like a PTSD from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I thought there was a hand trap coming, so meaning a card that was about to disrupt me. And I was like effect veil on my
or Nibiru or something. Yeah.
And like when I digged for like an item in the discard from Tamatoa, I thought there was a DD Crow coming because my opponent was like doing something with the hand. I'm like, oh,
yeah. In response, I'm gonna DD Crow. I'm like, oh,
and I was like, damn, you coming from Yu-Gi into a slower game and a game without interactions, like you feel really traumatized basically of all the hand trap, because I was literally playing Yu-Gi-Oh right before that, and it was like, damn, I need to change that because it affected my gameplay a bit. So that felt really weird. But in general, I think it doesn't matter which game you play. You can always delve deeper into the realm of how do I get an edge over the best players, right? And in Lorcana, that's what I really love about it. It's after you master the gameplay, which is in comparison to some other TCGs not really difficult. You just need a solid foundation in like tempo, swings, trading, and so on. And if you have that, the core gameplay of Lorcana is not difficult. But where you can get the edge then is deck building, but only after you master the gameplay first, right? If you fully master the gameplay, then you can delve in deck building. Else, when you have the perfect 60 because you spend the entire time to deck building, which most people do, which is a huge mistake. One mistake, you're out of tournament, right? So that's why people shouldn't do it. But that's a huge edge you can have. For example, my deck, if I play against the best, which I play against really crazy players at that tournament. When you play against really strong players, sometimes your only edge besides gameplay, and let's say both players are playing the same level, right? Then it's deck building. And this game here matters so much because, for example, when I topped the first time, second time, the card that I played all the time and I was known for was Diggler Deeper. And Diggler Deeper was a card where you might say it's bad, it's 8 cost uninkable, right? So it looks so bad. But the thing was, it wasn't an 8 cost uninkable, it was a 0 cost uninkable, because every single time let's say 95% of the time I used it was through singing. Yeah. Right? I sacrificed some lore, sure, But at that point, Control, Ruby, Sapphire, that's something that people didn't realize much often, or at least I realized quite fast. The lore doesn't matter because you want to control and then you burst your opponent. Doesn't matter from what lore count you were on, right? It most time never came down to, oh, I only reached 18 or 19 because I did crest with something earlier. Most time it's like you just won, or your opponent just lost because they're out of the game. You've fully controlled. They didn't even continue the game.
Yeah.
And that's why like something like Digger Leaper came up a lot, even though it was a one-off, right? It's a one-off in a 60 card deck. The game was so slow, and Ruby Sapphire had so many digging effects because you use Tarlas, you use Hyrims, you use Popsicles, you use Tamatora to get Popsicle back. Like, you cycle through your deck, and always quite over half of your deck, let's say like through 40 cards of 60, that was quite comfortable. Then you have a high chance to see that Digger Leaper, you sing it, you use it, and it was just so broken because of that card, I actually went through my entire deck. And for such a slow game like Lorcana, it just means that you saw every single card in your deck. It means you would just utilize 100% basically of your deck while your opponent didn't. And that's why the card itself was really strong. It really pushed me, and the deck building itself was so incredibly impactful.
Yeah. Which
in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also impactful, of course.
Yes.
But sometimes it just doesn't matter if you have like 19 or 18 hand traps, right? Like the one number off, it doesn't really matter. And what matters more is like having your combos. Like sometimes you extend your combo by one more brick, and then suddenly your combo is infinitely stronger, but you run one more brick, right? That's something you can think about most of the time in Yu-Gi-Oh! But many times it's like it doesn't really matter that much. In Lorcana, I just get a feeling, and I don't know if it's like how much it was impactful in terms of numbers, but my feeling is you change like one ratio and it's so impactful. Instead of running like 4 brawls, I run 3 brawls, it can be so impactful in the game. Or like I run one more Tala or one more whatever. It has a huge impact in my opinion in this game. So that's what I really like when I came from Yu-Gi-Oh! And else, the interactions I didn't really miss, because for me, at some point when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, it just got toxic because you draw your starting hand, your opponent, the meta's like, let's say the meta player has many decks that actually pseudo FTKs you basically like.
Yeah.
When they go do full combo, you basically lost if you don't have like multiple board breakers. And I was just always hoping, starting hand and pray that I have the perfect like counters to their hand. And it was just stressful at some point, right? When you just try to draw and then you just hope. And if you don't hit it, you're praying that your opponent misplays at that point only, right? And that's your only win con.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that in the end. It depends now. Let's say now the format's a bit slower, but it's only because of one deck. That's Ryzeal. And if they hit that deck, the entire format is literally decks that almost FTKs you, like Mermal hand loops you and puts like 2 Omni Negates and whatever on the field. Malice also completely obliterates you if you let the deck play.
Yeah.
And so many other decks that like they are not great against like Ryzeal, because Ryzeal has so much hand traps and consistency. But yeah, if that deck is gone, like so many pseudo FTKs are back, and it's always like that. The cycle of decks like that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like right now, a huge problem is, in my opinion, that the decks, many decks are super strong when they're going first, but really bad going second. Meaning, almost the same problem that you have in Lorcana, that some decks are insanely strong on the play, but really bad on the draw. But Lorcana is slow enough that it doesn't really matter that much. Like
not
at the
compared to
DLC high level, yes, but for set champs doesn't really matter,
Right. I mean, you said so many things. There's so much to unpack, and we're gonna have a really great episode because I've got some burning questions in my soul. So first of all, do you play any sports or watch any sports?
I used to watch sports, but since I started grinding Lorcana and Yu-Gi-Oh! Much, I didn't.
What did you watch back when you had some free time?
I was into fighting sports like karate and MMA and so on, but
okay.
Yeah, but now I didn't.
So
now I concentrate on TCGs.
TCGs. Okay. So I want to kind of combo a little bit about you want to teach people about how to improve in games, and you've also been grinding and you have a lot of information. You've gone through the gambit of learning through failure. So you've made mistakes and you've realized, okay, I can do better here. You've learned through deck building and play testing, okay, this ratio is better than that ratio. So I want to talk about like just trading card game fundamentals, not Lorcana based, not Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic based, but just like universal skills because you want to teach, you want to educate. So what are some of the most important fundamentals anyone listening to this podcast really needs to learn and master? Because like you said, a lot of times when you're playing games, it's easy to make excuses. Oh, I didn't get the like especially with Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh, I didn't get the right draw. Oh, I didn't get the right hand traps. Oh, they drew lucky. I'm unlucky. I didn't lose because of my skills. It was just it's out of my control. And sometimes that's true, but more often than not, you as the player have a lot more control over the environment than you think you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So, I would say for in general, like it depends on where you want to start with that topic. So, let's say a new player needs to concentrate on other stuff than an intermediate player, right, or a pro. But I would say the most important thing is really start at the beginning, like establish how you want to test, establish how much time you actually have for the TCG, right? And your goals, because that's important. It changes a lot because if it changes a lot when I talk to someone who's like, let's say, for example, a dad of 2 kids has like 1 hour each day max to play Lorcana and wants to reach at least DLC day 2, or someone who like has the same situation roughly and only wants to top the set champ, then I don't have to push him that hard. Or someone who's like a student has infinite time, then they can do other stuff. They don't have to be that much time efficient, but everybody should be as much time efficient as they can be. But that's something you need to realize first, how much time you have, and then what goals you want to achieve in, let's say, the next 6 months or so in the TCG, and what your overall how should I put it? I need the English word. What you're looking to get from a TCG, right? Some want winning prizes, money. Some want validation. Like I earn enough money in my job. I just want to be good at something, right? Getting the prizes, getting the top cut photos, like just the fame, the cloud. Some people want to just achieve something for themselves, like they just want to prove themselves that they can do great in the TCG. So set champ first place, they're really proud of. Day 2, DLC 1 time, and then they're really, really proud of, and they are basically almost done. They still continue to play, but in their head they're done. Some people wanna just have fun, Then that's important to realize what you want out of this game or TCG, where you're in, because then accordingly you can adjust your testing and your gameplays, like your entire plan. And maybe you even have to change the TCG, because let's say in Yu-Gi-Oh you cannot, like if you want to be performing well at YCS, you cannot do it half baked. Like you cannot say,
Right.
I only play 1 hour each day. Like it's at least 4 hours each day.
Yeah.
To reach a certain point where you don't even top, but at least you have a chance. And then, or you have a good circle where you can rely on, getting good lists, getting good knowledge, because it's the try and error in every TCG that you need. It's the experience that basically people also pay for coaching, right? When they skip most of the try and error, they still need to get the reps in, but not as many. So you're saving time there. And yeah, this is something people have to realize. And when it comes to testing, I would say the most important tip I have is you have to turn off your ego. And even though I say that a lot and teach it a lot, people still don't really understand it. And that is when it comes to testing, especially when you don't test alone like I do, because then it doesn't matter if you have ego or not. It still matters a bit because you cannot lie to yourself,
Right.
you know. But for example, if you test against, you have a testing circle with 5 people, and nobody is really at the top. You know, nobody has the level-headed approach, and everybody's like trying their best and so on. Of course, that's all fine. But then, let's say you test against your friend, and you beat him, and then you taunt him, you know, and then he's angry, and then he doesn't really want to test anymore, or he tries stuff to beat you, you know, like suddenly test wacky things just to beat you, and doesn't help you for testing. You gain like zero information of that. Or sometimes what happens a lot is they don't tell you everything. Like they know you did a misplay, but they don't tell you, so it won't diminish their win, basically, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that happens a lot when people are having egos when play testing together. And this is really important, is to realize, hey, we are testing now. Yeah, we are sitting down, we are testing, we are using our free time, which in the end of the day, a philosophical thing is you don't live forever. So you only have a limited amount of time to test, to have fun with your friends. So let's do it efficiently. If you wanna test, if you wanna sit down right now to test for a DLC, then let's do it efficiently. And then let's don't delve into like who's better. You know, it doesn't matter who's better. It doesn't matter who has more tops. It doesn't matter anything like that. Doesn't matter who wins the entire night. You know, and that's the important thing. And because then you will sit down and think together, play together. Something that many people don't like is to play like open hand or to play with full information, and then because they're like, oh, you don't have that in tournament, or like takebacks, you know, like that. Like, bro, it doesn't matter. It's now we have to figure out what the optimal line is. If you let me misplay, or if you don't let me play the best line, and you face the best line in the tournament, what does it help you now if you play against the worst line and you win now and you feel great? Yeah, so this is really important. And that will improve the testing process like immensely. But of course, not everything. Like you still need to know what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. During testing, for example, when I tested a lot, was I tried to find out when am I actually losing. Like let's say with my list, with my Dingle Law list, I play tested against Diggy Hole. I wanted to figure out, at what point am I actually losing? I have zero chance. For example, like Daisy, Piglet, Daisy, Lilo, I'm out, or it's me. I'm out. There's no chance I will win that. The only chance I win that if they break afterwards and put like 0 characters on board, but so unlikely, right? So, for example, in the top 4 in the DLC Melbourne, when my opponent opened, like how he did, I already knew like my chance to win was low. And then he opened a few more characters. I already knew I was losing, but I still played because why not, right? There's no point in giving up game 2 on top 4 on stream. So I just played it out, but at that point I already knew I was out because of my testing. And yeah, this kind of purpose you need, or like goals for testing you need to figure out before that, so you can focus your testing more on certain things, figuring out lines, figuring out what lore counts are the lore counts you can let your opponents go to, because in some matchups you cannot stop everything, but you can let them go to a certain point before they actually win, and then you can start controlling the board. Sometimes you cannot just control everything on site, so that's something people need to figure out.
Okay. So
a lot of information.
Oh yeah, this is going to be packed full of information and really good information. So jumping off of that, so you need to test, you need to train, you need to learn a lot of information. So this is something we used to do when we were playing professional Magic. I want to hear your thoughts on the topic of when you're testing, what do you consider good information and bad information? And for people who may not understand what I'm asking, when you're testing and training for a major event, what DKP was saying is absolutely true. You want to play as much as you can. You want to be efficient. You can play with open hands. You can play games where your opponent gets to draw the exact perfect hand, and you have to play with what you have because you're trying to overcome obstacles. But within that testing, there are points where you're going to get information that might be super beneficial so that you're successful at a tournament, and information that either isn't helpful or it can be slightly diluted. And if you use that information, that can set you up for failure. So when you're testing for Lorcana, what do you consider valuable information? And what do you consider like, yeah, this is not great. This is not good. We shouldn't utilize this data point. Even though we know it, we don't want to use it.
So for the good information is anytime you figure out like a new curve, like let's say when during testing, I always try to determine what curve am I looking for. For example, I have for example, my on the draw curve that I tested a lot was Tipo Goofy Maui, right? Or like one drop Tipo Goofy Maui Shark, like Rush Maui into Shark Maui. So this is the line I tried the most, and then after a while, I just figure out when is it smarter to go for the double rush line or to go how far going to Shark on the draw. Like if you can figure out lines like that, it's always like a great feeling because then now you know, oh, I have something new. Or for example, something from my masterclass that I teach there is a line that I found out was when I'm on the draw in the mirror match, the mirror match was always like this. They go Hiram on turn 3. You are always like, damn, what am I doing? If I brawl it and they follow up with another Hiram, I'm just behind in tempo, like, and they just steamroll, right? Or you go like Hiram, you own Hiram. Now they have the initiative. They can go another item plus brawl. Now they drew 4 cards of Hiram, and you gained. You lost your Hiram to brawl. Now you have to react again, but they are so far ahead in cards, right? Like. It was like a really uphill battle when they start turn 3 Hiram. But for me, I was like, I developed a line that was Mana Maui. That was so insane. I don't know if I did it on stream, but at least during testing, I did it a lot. Like when I saw my hand was ramp, turn 2, the best case would be Tipo into Mana into Rush Maui was insane because they something they do would be like Hiram. I play out Mana. Now they are under pressure because it doesn't matter how many hand cards they have, cards in hand they have, they need to get rid of the Mana. And now when they quest out or sing with the Hiram, I can just use my Rush Maui to get rid of Hiram. Yeah. Even though they draw more cards, I don't really care about their advantage because my Mana will tick. That's important. If they counter with their Rush Maui, I can Rush Maui with my Rush Maui. That's fine. The Hiram survives, but again, the Mana sticks. Else, let's say they don't play out. Many times what happens afterwards is they use an item and then play how far goes. So the Hiram was still alone, exerted, I attacked it. And now what they do was, maybe they start hitting the Mana, maybe don't. But what I can do afterwards is play out Shark, sing how far go with my Rush Maui. Insane value. And they still need to get rid of my Mana, and at some point they will, but I don't really care because it did its job, it distracted them, it gave me like 6 lore or so. And then I just put down the next one or put down, more Sharks, and then they B-prep me, and then I put out the next one. So I just keep pressuring even though I'm on the draw. So that's something I figured out. And that's why I concentrate my entire testing on that to figure out what lines are powerful and what not. And for me, most of the time when I test a lot like that is I don't find the information useless or bad. The only time I find my testing bad or useless is if I do blatant misplays, that shouldn't happen in real life or when I play the tournament. And then anything that happens afterwards is basically bad information because what happens then is sometimes, let's say people sometimes find tech cards where they get really biased on because it saved them out of a situation, And then I check the replay or check that, and they misplayed so heavily before that this game stage shouldn't even come up. And that is bad information for me because then, even though, these situations can come up naturally, it's just from the theory standpoint, it's so rare, but it happened to them because they misplayed, and I'm like, everything after your misplay, that shouldn't happen to begin with. doesn't really matter because the entire lines changes, right? Even if you forget to lose sometimes, and now you end up 19 and you lost, it was because of your misplay, and then your entire tournament experience also changed because then suddenly you play against different people and you are on lower brackets. Sometimes you face like really weird decks because you're on lower bracket. Like it just all piles down to that, you know. And I reach a point where I can say that I don't get influenced by that, and also mainly because I note down like most of my matches. When doing testing, for example, every single match I note down while I'm playing, like live protocoling basically. Did I win first or second, like on the play, on the draw? What was my mulligan roughly? Like key points, for example, I drew my Tipo or like I mulligan away these 4 cards, even though they were important. I mulligan them away. I note down the curve of my opponent, for example, Daisy, Piglet, Lawrence. I just typed the 3 words in so I know, oh, this was the curve when I reread it, the notes. Yeah, and I note everything down, and I also note down when I misplay, and then I try my best to get good information out of that, but most of the time the information I get after a misplay is not that useful. Again, because it changes the game drastically, right?
Yeah, because what you're saying essentially is if you play correctly, the information is valid because you're following a set of optimal sequencing. But once you make a mistake, everything after that, all the decision trees, they really shouldn't have happened. So all that information is pretty negligible because if you did everything right, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. Still, you can learn a lot from that, but you shouldn't get too influenced by that. Like when it comes to tech cards and so on, right? That's really important because then people are starting like to cling on weird tech cards that are really bricky. They're really situational, but they remember the bad situations they were in because these situations stick longer in your brain, right? Than the other situations. Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So you've probably seen this more in Yu-Gi-Oh than Lorcana, where people have like this weird 1 or 2 of because at some point somewhere, either locals or a tournament, they happen to have it and it was the right card at the right time and it saved them from losing. But in all reality, is that detrimental to successful gameplay, is trying to hold on to these sacred cows, as some people call them?
I mean, tournaments has a lot of variance, right? Sometimes you won an entire tournament because you did something that is considered bad, or you played something that's considered bad. It just helped you out, and then you play it at the next tournament, set champs, and then it just is bad. That can happen. I think like my optimal thing to do at every tournament is just to build your deck as consistent as possible. So you are putting the luck factor as like you try to put the luck factor out, right? And then what is left is literally your gameplay and the luck of the draw. But I like to put out the luck factor of deck building. So I think if you have like a good time at one tournament because you take something spicy or whatnot, you still have to, like, after every tournament you have to sit down again and think about is it actually smart to run that, and is it actually smart to in this meta because the meta shifted, you know? That's why I didn't play Digger Deep anymore. I wanted to play it Australia because I included Tala again in my list to 3, so I had the body to sing it, but I still decided against it because just from the logic standpoint, even though I remember, like, the card saved me so many times. For example, against Dale Belido.
Yeah.
I would have lost at least that game, and then we would have went to the game 3, but I 2-0'd him at Dallas Fort Worth, top 32, because I top decked the Digger Leaper. And that time was also really strong because the meta wasn't that fast. So it was really, really strong to run such a card. But now it's most of the time just too fast to play such a card.
Right. Okay.
So I didn't put it in.
Well, I think that's an interesting talking point that a lot of people may or may not be aware of because it's such a psychological thing. So when you and I are talking about ratios and lines of play and combos, these are metrics we can measure because you can verifiably prove if I do Tipo, use the effect, then the next turn I play Goofy, then the next turn I play Maui. Like you've got a game plan, you've got a strategy. But when you talk about the human psyche and that one time they just happened to have that one tech card and it saved them and it got them into day two, that's a lot more difficult to parse because, like you said, maybe they played it because they made a misplay. Maybe they got to play it because their opponent made a misplay. Maybe both players made a misplay. There's so many variant items and it isn't consistent, but your brain tells you, oh, that one card, that's like the best card in the deck because that's the card that got me to day two. And
Yeah.
it's tricky to parse the human psyche and go, well, technically you're right, but efficiently, like empirical data wise, not really so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge problem in general when it comes to when it comes to deck building and trying to figure out what is objectively the best and not. That's why it's also a bit. It makes the TCG in general a bit more beautiful, because people are just playing different bits, right? Like what different cards and so on. Like else, to be honest, everybody would play like one list, I guess.
Yeah.
And not playing like all the different kinds of lists that we see, like even for the same color, even for the same strategy. Like I never saw like someone playing the same list if they didn't work together.
Right.
So this is really nice to have in the TCG, and when it comes to your personal like achievements and goals and so on, you should like always try to be objective about your card choices.
Okay. So let's move forward. You talked earlier about you want to teach people the fundamentals of playing a trading card game, like just how to become a good player. So we've talked about that. And then you said deck building comes second. So where did you get that philosophy from? Because so many people look at a trading card game and they have the inverse perspective of I got to focus on my deck building and then that will improve my playing. And you're saying you need to improve your playing and then you can tighten up your deck building. So like where did you learn that?
Basically from coaching people. And I applied that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Already, but let's really talk about Lorcana. So when I started out Lorcana, the first thing I did to learn the game was I strictly net deck. Right? I net deck, I don't know, Chicago, top 4, whatever, or top 8, I don't remember. DLC Chicago list, and I just played it. And I tried to learn because I already have experience in Magic, Hearthstone, and so on, Runeterra, whatnot. I know how to, even though the game is different, of course, I know how to trade. I know what value is. I know card advantage and so on. All the concepts that New York people lack, and they don't have a hard time to understand, but they haven't mastered it yet.
Right.
So all these concepts I already know. So I got the game really fast. So at the point when I got it, I start to realize, damn, the Sisus, the ice blocks, is so annoying. I mean, when they work together, they work great. But I also realized really fast, and I analyzed it. I put my focus on it and checked, okay, did they win me the game here, or did they just win me the game faster? Yeah.
That's a spicy take. Okay, I see you.
Yeah, because many times, like I just realized every time I played Sisu, of course I won, but I could have won without it. So now the thing was, okay, if I can win without it, let's say instead of winning while my opponent has 10 law, I could have also won when they had 18 law. Because it doesn't matter if they have 18 or 16. If I keep the control and I know I can keep them forever at 18, then it's also fine. So I cut it. And that's when I also realized, okay, my gameplay was good enough to do this. And then when I started coaching at some point, everybody wants to talk to me about deck building. Like I start the coaching session, answered some questions that they had before. Okay, then we went in. Everybody wants to talk about deck building. I'm like, okay. In the start, I always just follow their topics because it's their money, right? So I just decide to follow through. But now I'm like, okay, set me replays or let's just play and see where you're at. because I don't want to do it anymore. It's so tedious for me to do deck building when I know for a fact I cannot even play the deck correct. So what happens a lot is then they show me gameplay, and then I ask them like tons of questions because I see like multiple misplays in one run. Not even necessarily misplaced, but I asked them like, why did you do it? Because it wasn't that bad. It was like good in terms of the context, right? Like I did that because I assumed they will have this and this, and then it's fine, right? Then you made an educated guess what they might have. That's why you inked, let's say, a Rush Mayo, and like, or at some point you wanted to keep like another card, like a consistency card, and then you inked the Rush Mayo, right? And then some other point, you might need the Rush Mayo because you can assume right now library is really popular in purple, and they play purple. Let's say purple steel, and then you need to keep the Rush Maui always in hand to be ready, or develop your board differently, because then you need to, instead of Hiram turn 3, you need to go Talo on turn 3 just to be ready that they might maybe drop the library next turn, because if you drop Hiram and draw 2, and they drop library, Hiram and Maui cannot one-shot it. So that's bad. And now they can gain like 2 or 3 more cards to draw from. So that's something like this. And then I just realized really quick, damn, it doesn't matter how well you build. Like we can sit down and deck build for 8 hours, and because that happens a lot, right? You ramble about 2 ratios, and both ratios are valid, but then you talk about this and talk about that. It's like you just go in a circle and doesn't help you. And then they play, and then they misplay. Like one misplay is enough to kick you out of the entire tournament, because there's one philosophy that I like to apply, and that is for DLC to top, normally not the Australian one. The Australian one was quite easy to reach day 2, to be honest. But for the normal DLC, you need 504. That's your goal, right? 504 means 14 wins, 4 draws, right?
Yeah.
You need to go 14-4. And in terms of best of 3 games, that doesn't sound crazy, but in terms of 2-game format, that's insane score, because
it's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard, right? So you need to win 5 of your on the draw games, basically, out of 9. So
which is hard.
Yeah, which is hard. So at that point, you need to realize that 4 of the losses, I would say 1 of them will be at least due to brick. And 3 of them will be that your opponent just high rolled you.
Yeah.
So now you have 0 games for misplays. That's how I see it. Sometimes you get 1 bonus game back because your opponent misplays hard. Then you get the game back, right? But for me, I try. That's what motivates me to push for the limit, push for the max, because I know, okay, 1 game I will lose to, I will draw out because of brick. Another game I will lose because, or like another match I would draw because my opponent just have good, and the same again. And yeah, you cannot afford to misplay there. So that's why as long as we have 2-game format, because in a 2-game format, when you misplay, the only outcome is a draw or a lose. You don't win anymore. In comparison to best of 3, where you can maybe reverse sweep. It's the gameplay. The gameplay must be top notch. So what I always say now is, when someone has a limited time because they have obligations, family, whatever, I tell them, okay, you're doing a long-term coaching with me, just take my list. Or like, let me deck build, you concentrate on playing. You don't think about picking at all. You don't think about it. You just play. Think about what your lines are. Think about what you want to ink. That's the skill in this game, what to ink, right? Because sometimes people ink like visions, double visions mindlessly, and then it's so bad. In late game, or they have double Tala in hand. They think, I can ink the 1 Tala. At some point, you just stop inking instead of inking mindlessly, right? Some people ink mindlessly to 13 or so. I'm like, what do you need the ink for? Like, and then they always say, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You should know.
Yeah, right.
just give me give me a good answer, man.
Those are the 3 most dangerous words. I don't know.
Yeah, that happens a lot during my coaching. I'm like, if you do something, do it with like a conviction. Have a reason, okay? And then do it. Just don't do it because you don't know and just guess. Yeah. And this is like the huge traps when it comes to like deck building and gameplay. And I get it. Deck building is fun, right? It's so much fun to just brew your own deck. But when you want to stay at the local level or like just having fun, okay, so just do it. But most people that come to me, they want to improve, right? They talk with me, they want to do great. And then you cannot afford this. Like you cannot just waste hours and hours on deck building and then you go to your tournament that you want to perform and then you just grab out. That's not what you can do, what you should do. You're wasting your time. My time, you cannot really waste my time. I get the money, right? But you're wasting your time. And that is important, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you ever heard of Justin Wong from like Street Fighter, the fighting game community? So he's one of the best players in the history of ever. He's won so many titles. And the biggest thing he pushes when he tries to give advice is purpose. So you know about Street Fighter though, like fighting games in general, like what it is. So whenever you're playing a game, you have to make purposeful, conscious decisions in real time. It's a lot more stressful than a trading card game, because in a trading card game, you get to take your turn and I get to sit there and I get to watch you do what you do. And then I get to look at my cards in my hand. I actually have time to make a strategy. It's kind of like a turn-based game where you take your turn, I take my turn. In a fighting game, in fighting games like Street Fighter, I have to make split-second decisions every millisecond. Like, if you walk towards me, do I block? Do I jump? Do I crouch? Do I throw out an attack? So on and so forth. So I love listening to Justin talk about purpose, because it's like you said, when he's talking to people, they'll do stuff. They'll throw out like a kick. And he goes, "Why'd you do that?" And they go, "I don't know," or "I was afraid." And he'll teach them, like, that's not a healthy perspective, because your opponent is trying to gain information. It's called footsies, when the people are kind of walking around the screen. And so your opponent's trying to learn your perpetual habits. And so they'll walk towards you. And if you throw out a kick and then they walk towards you a second time, you throw out a kick, they know if I walk towards them, they'll throw out a kick. So then I can like throw a fireball. I can jump and attack from the air. I can do all kinds of things because they'll follow the same pattern and I'll just defeat them. So trading card games follow a very similar philosophy, even though it's not in real time, where, you know, maybe if you challenge, they'll keep their removal in their hand, or maybe if you quest, they'll challenge. And so you can learn these patterns of, oh, if I do this, they'll do that. So I know exactly how to play, and I'll bait them out with, all right, I'll quest with Tipo. They challenge into me. Okay, cool. I'm going to use my, you know, Rush Maui or my Shark Maui, and I'll bait them in because they think, oh yeah, I see them, you know, do that thing. I'm going to challenge. Cool. I'm going to use your patterns against you to win the game. So purpose is so incredibly important, because if you don't have a purpose, you're just aimlessly doing random crap, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Funny topic for that is, I differentiate playing at the DLC and at Continentals, because at the DLC I can play much more risky. You know, like I have, let's say, especially with my list, I have different lines I can do. Like I have like 5 early games lines I can do. Yeah. And at the DLC, I can just throw out most of them. At the Continentals, I can only use like the best 2, basically.
Right.
Because they won't misplay, or like they will react accordingly. DLC is just normal. Like I played was my 7th DLC, right? I think I played the most DLC out of everybody by far, I guess. So my experience from playing that many Swiss rounds is always the Swiss rounds, and some of the top cut rounds are like basically you playing against someone who haven't mastered the game fully yet, right? They will always like not doing a full misplay like a big one, but just a tiny one, right? And you can almost like bank on that, on that fact. At the DLC, at the Continental is much less likely that they will do so. Some players even at the Continentals, they didn't grind Lorcana like the entire day like some other people do, right? They just got the invite one time and they didn't play any DLC afterwards, and then now they just play because they had the invite and give their best shot, but they didn't grind it as hard as like Ed or Zan or me, you know, like they just came. I talked to them and they just told me that like there was one guy, that he just came because he had the invite, and he just played for fun. Like, sure, if that's your thing, then do it, right?
Right.
But that happens way less often than at the DLC, because at the DLC, many players I talk to, like they just, it's their first DLC, they just want to try it out, have fun, and this is like a different field. It's not in terms of decks, like, because the decks are almost the same. It's more of the gameplay in the decks, right? Because you can face the same deck list, give it to two different people, and they would just play it differently. It's also for my list. I had multiple people playing with my list. I asked them about feedback. They told me stuff where I'm like, "What do you mean? You shouldn't be in that situation, or you shouldn't do that line." And then I play test, for example, against one guy. I tested against him because he said nobody does that against me, and then I just showed him my lines, and he was like, "Damn, nobody does that against me." I'm like, "Yeah, that's how you should play my list."
Right.
And then that's also another topic. Like, deck list is one thing, gameplay is one thing, and then gameplay with the same list is so different between different people already. Also, there's a lot into it.
Yeah, and that really showcases why the same people will perform so well in a given game. So if you think about Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Pokemon, Lorcana, doesn't matter what game, you're going to see the same names consistently at tournaments, making day 2, top 16, top 8, top 4, whatever metric you want to go by. And so many people wonder, why is it that these, this pool of like 30 people are always winning every time they go to an event? What are they doing? And the reality is, a lot of people think, oh, it's because they're lucky, or oh, it's because they net decked and they've got the best deck. So essentially, money wins games or whatever. And the reality is, it's people who are consistent, who are grinding, and they've learned what to do and they've learned what not to do. And they're consistently performing because they understand, if I do X, Y, and Z, I will win. If I do X, Y, and F, I will lose the game. And they practice so they don't make that error. So what do you think about that? Because you've been on both sides of the coin, where you're now a competitive player, you're performing well, you're going to do extremely well at Worlds. But it's easy for someone on the outside looking in going, oh, DKP, he's just lucky. He's lucky, he net decks, he buys the best cards. It's not skill, he's lucky. It's like, that's not true. Mm-hmm. We know that's not true.
Mm-hmm. It's like, luck is always a factor in TCGs, else we would play chess, right? It's like the go-to argument. But what in any sports or like TCG, whatever, when even in chess there's a bit of luck involved, funny enough. Not luck because of pieces also, but luck in terms of how your opponent reacts, right?
Yep.
And you as a pro just utilize the luck the best or better than a non-pro, right? That what makes people pro. Like, you have the same luck as someone else, but you just utilize better. Like, you did the best with what luck gave you, dealt you in your hand, right?
Yeah, it's a resource. It's a resource you manage.
Yeah, so that's the difference. Like, the pro will do the best with the bad hand, where the bad player will do like the worst, basically, or they gave up already.
Yeah,
and because sometimes, even though you have a bad hand, you should lose this game. Maybe your opponent misplays. Sometimes your opponent is so they see they're winning. Happened to me also one time, not in Lorcana but in Yu-Gi-Oh. And then they will be like, yeah, I won, yeah, and they celebrate too early. They felt too safe, and then they did a crucial misplay.
Yeah,
and suddenly they were losing, and that happens a lot. So always like push through, and the game always ends when the game actually ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're actually giving up, or like 20 laws reach. Until then, you can see it, like how Ed and Zan plays. Like, I just watched a game of Zan against Ed like a few days ago. The top 4, I think, was it? Top 4 when Zan and Ed played. Like, when Ed shifted the Sisu, it was over. like Zan was out, but he just still tried the best because maybe Ed misplays,
Yes.
or draws bad 4 times back to back. That happens. I did that in DLC Birmingham. You have to imagine this situation. I am on the draw. I need to win this to get in. My opponent, when he wins, he's not even. He's like drawing out. So I need to win this. Now, so the entire pressure is on me. I have like 3 judges, 15 people watching because my table was on the outside, so everybody could watch easily. Everybody was watching. I was one of the last matches. And my opponent opens Popsicle, Chicha, Quill, Hiram. The nuts. It's like he drew infinite cards. He got to 10 ink. He was like 11, 12 ink, had 10 hand cards. I had 3 cards in hand, 7 ink stuck. I couldn't ink because every single card in my hand that was inkable was good, like Tamato or Maleficent and so on. And I still played the best I could. And also my deck carried me a bit because I top deck into Digger Deeper while I had like useless buddies on the field, and then and the funny thing, there's also a thing about the card, like digging cards. I just got rid of the 7 cards off my top because they were all bad. I just picked 2 out of the 7, the best mod 2. And then my top decks were insane, of course, because I just got rid of 7 bad ones, basically saving 7 top decks, right? 7 draw faces.
You thinned out, man. That's good.
Yeah, and what happened to my opponent was he drew bad for 6, 7 draws. Like he drew Sisu, like small Sisus, Ice Block. I don't know what items he also played. Like at some point he had like he kept inking with Quill. Also that was kind of a mistake. I don't know why he inked so much, but he inked useless cards, so it's fine. And then what happened was he just dropped 4 Ice Block at once. I'm like, okay, that was his hand the entire time. I was wondering like how many bricky cards he had in his hand, and then I won out of that start. I'm like, damn! And everybody was like, how did you win? And then some people came, like more knowledgeable people came, and they were like, oh, you did all the things I would have also done. And then I felt like validated there because I was like, yeah, I just played the best with the hand I got dealt with. Yeah, I did the best. I didn't panic because I couldn't, to be honest, also. Like there was no point in panicking, right? Again, okay, for me, like, but other people would have panicked because my opponent started so fast, like so many hand cards, so much ink. I just did the best I could. And that's like the difference between like an average player and a really good one, I would say.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the term you hear a lot is playing to your outs. So you described the perfect scenario. Your opponent opens hot. They're playing the gas. They've just got all the tools, all the things they need, and you do not. However, you never give up. You never surrender. You give it the best you can. And you experienced and told us a story about someone who started hot and then they kind of fell off. You started cold and then you heated up and you were able to win. So like, what kind of mental faculties does a player need in order to overcome that fear? Because you've just described a scenario where an experienced player understands what's happening. You understand the opponent has a lot of good tools. You do not have a lot of good tools, but you're using what tools you have to strengthen your board state, strengthen your hand, and you're hoping that your opponent makes a mistake or they brick or they draw poorly, and you came out ahead. You won the game. You did well, but people who are listening to this may not understand it's a mental state. It starts in your brain before you actually play it out onto the field.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, what I catch a lot people do is, I did it at the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Lorcana too a bit, is you are intimidating yourself. Let's say you're like, next round you face Zan Zaid. You're like, oh, I can face against Zan Zaid, and then you panic already in your brain. But the mental state that you need to reach is, he's also just a player. He has the same odds. His deck doesn't play like a special version of a card because he's a pro. He has access to it, right? He
he's got like a special version. Yeah, he just automatically draws it because he's Zan.
Like he's not like drawing better, have an extra skill in like that just says, yo, he has 10% better hands than you do. But so he's also a human, and if you do your lines correctly and he does his lines correctly. The only thing that differentiates you now is, of course, the luck, right? So that's like you have to rationalize that, and this is like the most important thing that people stop doing this, like to intimidate themselves and give like other or their opponents like a superpower that they don't have, right?
Right.
And right now I go into a room. I don't care about if I play against Zan or against someone who has his first event or I don't know, like Ed, like I just play. I play my best. I play the lines I've learned. I don't start doing crazy lines just because I faced a crazy player and need to high roll them, right?
Right.
That's like a big thing that people also like to do quite often, and that's not good. That's really bad. They experiment or they panic when you panic, you tend to experiment or you tend to mix up lines because you're like, oh, should I do this line or should I do this line? Then you start line A, but then you realize because you didn't think long enough or because you panicked, line B was better, and then you go from line A to line B, but that's not possible because you already started line A.
Right.
And then you messed up. And that's like a huge thing, because you ink certain parts of line B already because you wanted to commit to line A, and now you realize now you're stuck between both lines. And now instead of doing one line perfectly, you did like both lines half baked, and then you
like
lose.
a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is it more about respecting your opponent than fearing them in that scenario? So say, you go to an event, you sit down across from DKP. A lot of newer players are going to freak out and go, "Oh my god, I can't win because, he's so much better than I am."
Okay. If I have to be blunt, they should be like, I'm gonna clap DKP, like respectful, yeah. Be respectful, before the human being, like, right? Like a decency, like respectful because you're sitting across a human, but towards the game, just say, yo, I'm gonna clap him, like be this kind of confident, even though you are not. Maybe you're not that skilled, but still, don't put yourself into the position. Oh no, that's DKP, and he will most likely win. No, put your mind state into I will win, and even if you don't win, that so be it. But at least you didn't lost the battle before the battle began.
Yeah.
And so I sit down. Doesn't matter who I face. I'm like, I'm gonna beat them. I go full power and I'm gonna beat them. And if I don't, yeah, so be it. Some people like will see this as arrogance or something. I will say it's like just still be respectful to your opponent and so on, but don't fear them, right? Don't fear them.
Right. Yeah.
Don't respect their titles. Ignore their titles. Their titles mean nothing for this game, for this match that you are playing right now. Doesn't matter if they are like 5-time DLC champion. Doesn't matter. They can't just draw bad now and they lose, or you just outplay them. They lose. Doesn't matter, right? The title won't help them.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Ego would be, I'm better than DKP. I'm going to beat DKP because I'm...
you need to be hungry.
Yeah.
You need to be hungry for the win.
Yeah, but there's a difference between respecting the person and respecting the title. So yes, you should respect your opponent, but in that moment when you're sitting down across from any person, you're right, the title means nothing. You're both humans. You both put your pants on one leg at a time, and you can make a mistake. Zan could make a mistake. Zach can make a mistake. Everyone can make a mistake. So if you focus on a healthy mindset, confidence is different from ego. If you're confident that you play well, you're going to follow your lines of play, you've practiced for this, do what you train to do, that's not egotistical. And now if you say, oh, I'm better than you because I wear designer clothes and I'm DKP, like that's much, much more different. But yeah, in that moment, in that time, respect the person, but you are two people with the exact same odds of winning. Now you have to focus on actually performing, not letting your opponent get in your head just because they're, insert person's name here. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing to think about.
I had the situation where, one thing where what you can utilize, or maybe not, maybe you shouldn't, I don't know yet, is I sometimes assume my opponent has the best. And that's almost fall in the same thing that as title, because I sometimes say, oh, they just have it. And when they don't have it, I feel so much more happy, I feel great. I do my lines, but sometimes I have to commit into like playing. I play to my house and I just pray they don't have it. But in my mind, they have it. But I still do that line, So it doesn't really affect me negatively. But like in the which game was that? I don't remember which game in Australia. I was like, okay, GG's. You know, like I didn't say GG because I was winning. I said GG because I thought my opponent has it. I was against Purple Steel, and he didn't draw Zeus or Strength or Raging Fire for like 6 turns. And if he had drew it one time in their 6 turns, I would have lost. And I'm like, I was always like in the mindset. I didn't say GG, but my mind I was said GG with each top deck. Sometimes he went like rabbit bounce, you know, like he drew like 4 cards or so and still didn't get him. Like but suddenly I'm winning, and then I just won the top 32, I think. The game where I should have lost, the game 1, in game 2 my opponent just drew bad, and I drew game 2 almost the same happened. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, my opponent tries to do the same, but he drew actually bad. I already saw from the curve that he drew really bad. But that's also something I wanted to note.
Well, how do I put this? I feel like that's a skill that comes with lots of experience, because when you make the assessment, because I do the same thing. If I'm playing anybody, I just automatically assume they have the out, they have the answer. And if they don't play it, I immediately go, okay, thank God I can now continue playing my strategy because they're not going to disrupt it. And if they do disrupt it, I've got plans to react to the disruption. So I'm always prepared for what's coming.
Yeah.
And that's difficult because I feel like the old moniker of the best players in the room have taken some of the most brutal losses is not quite understood until you actually get to that point of you've lost so many big things, small things, medium things, that you begin to look at the game more of, here is the current obstacle I have to overcome. Here's how I can do it if everything goes right. Here's how I can do it if everything goes wrong. And here's how I can do it if I don't get some things and they don't get some things. And it's just a mindset. You have to look at everything in a positive light and be confident. You don't have to be cocky or egotistical or arrogant, but you need to believe in yourself for sure.
Yeah. But sometimes it is difficult for some people, especially when they don't have the track record, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just need to basically lie to yourself and just say you are better. Sometimes you just say need to push yourself. I'm better. The title doesn't mean anything. I will win. And then if you still get beaten, but then you have to just sit down and analyze why you get beaten. Did you misplay and so on, right?
Yep.
Don't put yourself into just into the shoes where you just say, I lost because I'm worse.
Yes.
You have to figure out why you lost, right? That's an important thing.
Yeah, never give your opponent the win before you've played the game. Like you said, don't ring the bell before you start. It's not Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! You can lose because you just didn't draw well.
Yeah. Like sometimes when my opponent's like super nervous and so on, I already know that in their mind, they probably already lost.
Yes.
You know? And then the game, it manifests really quickly in the game where I see the started inking all the good cards that are actually really good against me. I'm really happy, that they ink that. And I can already see, okay, they are panicking or they are really anxious and start doing that. So that's a really important thing to apply.
Yeah, mental fortitude is a critical resource in tournament play, along with every other thing you have to manage. But yeah, your mental health is so untalked about in trading card games, and it fascinates me because my wife is a therapist and I work in TV and film, and we have to take a minor in psychology because there's a lot of moral things we can and cannot do with TV and film. So like understanding when someone's nervous across from you that you already have such a huge advantage is fascinating.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your deck. Not necessarily the cards, but more of the philosophy. So I'm looking at your deck list right now, and something I find interesting is your pips of lore on your cards is relatively low, but your ability to gain lore through card effects is very strong. On top of that, you have a lot of ways to dig through your deck and see the cards you need more consistently. You're able to ramp and get more cards into your inkwell. You can draw cards, steal lore, remove lore, board wipes. You've got kind of a wide range of options. So when your buddy, let's go back to Yu-Gi-Oh! When your Yu-Gi-Oh! Buddy told you to play Ruby Sapphire, why did he tell you to do that? What was the reason behind it?
In Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like kind of a guy who plays like mid-rangey and
Okay.
like in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's no really control. The mid-range decks are basically the control decks. When it comes to like like just cycling your resources, basically doing small things. Don't do like big combos. Like just do like mid combos and then have hand traps. Like draw cards. Like these kind of decks, the mid-range decks in Yu-Gi-Oh are basically the red blue deck.
What were you playing in Yu-Gi-Oh when you shifted over? What was your deck?
Yeah, like Sprite, for example, purely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not like heavy combo decks, right? It's like only you do like a few interruptions. You have hand traps on top of that. You have recursion. You have like follow up, and then you do the same stuff again, basically.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's why he told me he realized that too. Otherwise, like red purple was also basically the red purple is Ruby Amethyst is the Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Or was the Yu-Gi-Oh deck, right? Right now, in my opinion, Ruby Sapphire is the Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Like my version is a Yu-Gi-Oh deck.
Yeah.
So that's why he told me to do that. But he told me to play Ruby Sapphire because Ruby Sapphire was at that point the tier 1 and Ruby Amethyst wasn't so much, right? It suffered from Bucky basically.
Yes.
But yeah. So overall, the philosophy for my deck, I would say, mainly comes from the drive, the motivation that the game gets faster, right? You can't do anything against it. There's no tech for it because when the Lorcana started out, it was quite vanilla, right? Everything had like real conditional effects or like no effect, and it's really slow. And with each set, we get better value. Like Daisy, for example, like hugely overstated, but at some point, something like Daisy will be the norm, like better stats, we get better stats, more lore on the bodies, better effects, and it will just continue to do so with each set. And from set 4 to set 5, the speed of the game wasn't that much higher. That red blue, like you could play red blue without text in set 5 for aggressive decks, and you would be fine. In set 6 now, everything got so much faster in a way that you have to acknowledge it by running like really bad text or running a different kind of build like I did. Like unink text. The text itself are not bad, but they're uninkable most of the time, right?
Right.
So right now, what happens is, in my mind, the game is a bit too fast for Ruby Sapphire. Not always. The Ruby Sapphire still performs well, right? But for me personally, like, there are some matchups where you just sometimes will just straight up lose by turn 4 or 5. And even though they didn't reach 20 yet, they still need like 2 or 3 more turns. It's inevitable. That's the difference.
You're talking about like hyper aggro?
No, like Diggy Diggy Hole. If they start like Daisy, Daisy Piglet, Daisy Smee, or Lilo, you're done.
Yeah.
There's only something really specific you can have, like something with small Sisu, the uninkable one, but then you run uninkable one and ice blocks and so on. It goes into another direction again. So the motivation was, I need a faster build. And I was on Goofy like a long time ago already, like, but I still never, I always saw him as a meme. So that's why I didn't pull the trigger. But I developed this deck mainly because the meta gets faster, so I also need to be faster, right? But then I also realized, okay, if I'm faster to beat the Ruby Sapphire, to beat the aggressive decks with like Goof and Rushmore and so on, what is my win con against like the slower decks, right? So I started out with just Shark, just go heavy on Shark. At the European Continental, I saw the French guys and Reese, the first place of Swiss of the European Continental. So they all play mana, but they didn't play hard on Shark. So I combined it afterwards, because then on Sunday Revival event, I combined both, and I just saw the power. I'm like, I played 2 mirror matches, I 2-0'd them both, and like, it wasn't even close. They couldn't do anything against the Shark burn first, which at some point you can stop with like a B prep or whatever. But if you follow it up with manas, they cannot stop that. And then if you follow it up, maybe they stop the manas, and then you follow it up with like Pirate's Life and Super Goof as like just additional finishers and Login. Now they cannot do anything. Because at the time when they start to develop their stuff like Dime and Tamatoa and so on, you're already at 14, 16. Oh, and you just need like 2 or 3 more Login cards just to finish off. And I just realized that works really well. And now this deck has many fans because it just basically fix. I wouldn't say fix, but it would. Many players had the problem that Ruby Sapphire had many earnings, right? 14.
Right.
Like before the sale was like 20, right? So there's still like 14, 15. Even at 12, sometimes especially when you play the uninkable tech cards, you have matchups where the tech cards are really bad and you don't play Quill anymore. So that means now you are stuck with that in your hand and you are forced to play it out at some point, because else, like at some point you're out of gas and then you have to play it out. But it's like a blank card, you know? Like sometimes people play like a small Sisu against me, just play it out, you know, like a 1/1 evasive just to have it on board, because what else are they gonna hit? Because I play only 3 high rims and sometimes I just play out 0 high rims at all over an entire match. So the card's really bad in their hands, so they just play it out. But for me, I like all of my cards are good, right? And that's my philosophy. Like I wanted to have a deck that runs slow uninkable, so I solved that. It's really fast because also for many people it's boring because so slow paced, the original one, even though if you enjoy control paced decks, it's really fun, of course, but this deck is like infinitely much faster. Like I ended matches, like 2-game matches in Melbourne in under 10 minutes. Under 20 minutes, sorry. So when everybody was still playing their game 1, I finished my match 2-0 already because it was so fast. I ram, Shark, second Shark, and just burned them from, I don't know, 6 to 20 the next turn. I literally ignored what they did. So this is like a new playstyle, new game plan that people like to play because it's just so fast. And else this deck, like every card is either inkable or extremely good in what it does when it's uninkable. Like Alphago is always usable, even if you have to hardcast it. It's inks for you, and you get 1 out of 2 cards. Insane value. B-Prep is also always doing something. Like there are almost no moments where B-Prep is dead in your hand. You can always use it at some point. Even worst case, you blow up your own board, but then at least you get rid of your opponent's type out. That's why I didn't run anything else. Like I played Big Sisu before, but then I kicked her because I was like, first 8 is too expensive in my deck because I stop inking at 6 most of the time. Sometimes 7. And then even if I manage to go to 8, if they start to play around her or there's nothing on board, sometimes I had to play her out like that, you know, as a body, which is fine. But then point I can just play my Golden Mickey, you know, just have a 4 lore body. And that's something I realized not really quick. I realized after the NA Continentals I wish I would have played this list for the European Continentals already, but yeah, cannot change that. But that's the philosophy behind it. Now to have like a super high consistent build, to apply like many deck building principles of like go for consistency. Every single unink has a premium, has a cost on your deck, and I just decide to not. I didn't want to go the high roll route where if I run a one-off uninkable, then I draw it in the right time. Sometimes it saves you. I told you before, the ratios in this game is really important. Even a one-off can change the entire tide of the game. I just decided against it. I just decided I want to do the same stuff every game consistently. Yeah. That's why I could mulligan for 7. I had never had a situation where I drew into too many uninkables, which is almost impossible because I only play 8, right? Many times I already drew 2 of them, so if I mulligan 2 away, the likelihood that I draw too many out of 6 uninks is so low. So I full mulligan so often, and it just works. Like it's just a different. I basically applied everything that I wanted to ever apply in terms of deck building in this deck now. I wanted to play only Popsicle for such a long time because every single item annoyed me so much because in itself, every single item besides any item that draws you a card is just a -1 when you play it out.
Right.
And it's only getting useful when you actually use it. But again, the meta is fast-paced now, and most of the time when you use the Ice Block or the Vitality or whatnot, is quite late.
Yeah.
Quite late. So I was always, I just kick them all. I just want to concentrate on, if I control the early game, I go into my Shark and it sticks, then I'm good. I don't need anything else. I don't need any gimmick else. Like the early game needs to be consistent, and I just went for that. And then I have my tech cards like Let It Go for threats like come to another Shark, opposing Shark. Sometimes I hit like Scars, like anything. I hit anything that threaten my manas, right?
So that's a great way to segue into the next thing I want to talk about, and that's the term card advantage. So you were talking about when you play an Ice Block, when you play a card out of your hand, it's a -1. You have 7 cards in your hand, you play a card, you're -1. If you ink another card, you're -2. So you're constantly using cards to do stuff. That's just how card games work. It's a resource you have to manage. Something I see in this deck that I really love, because I'm a control player at heart, so I love consistency and I love card draw. And I'm seeing a lot of that because you've got Flaversham, you've got Develop Your Brain, Sail the Sea, Visions of the Future, How Far I'll Go, Popsicle. You've just got so much value. And then like Maui Shark can recur your actions and you can keep doing it. So at what point did you start realizing you can make this deck really consistent using your actions to offset your air quotes luck? Because a lot of people will look at a deck and go, oh, I'm just unlucky, I couldn't draw what I needed. And you offset that with all of these cards that I think filtering is probably the better way to put it. So there's no tutoring in Lorcana, which means the term tutor means you can just look for any card you want. Filtering means you get to look at a set number of cards, and then so like Visions of the Future is a great example. Look at your top 5, you get to put 1 into your hand, and you put the rest back. So you're not technically drawing a card, you're just looking at 5 and then picking the one you want. Sail the Azurite Sea, it's basically a net 0 because you play the card, but then you draw another card. So you didn't -1, but you didn't +1 either, but you're still filtering through. So like, at what point did you realize I'm just going to use all of these really efficient filters to hit the consistency point of whatever you pretty much see whatever you want when you want, I'm assuming?
So the thing is, if you watch my other decks, like look it up, I never played different ratios for my for my filtering cards. I always played for Develop, for Sail, for Vision, for Fargo, for Popsicle, normally for Hiram, and not always for Thala, but also Thala. So that never really changed. So like when people see my list now, oh, he's so many digging cards, I'm like, I played that all the time. There was no time before that I didn't play this amount of like digging cards. So what I only did was changing the control shell, which is like Tamator, Maleficent, and so on, and Sisu, and some other items for the Goofy, Shark, Let It Go, Pirate's Life Matters. The rest is literally the same as I played like half a year ago. For me, the card advantage in this game is only important to keep up with your opponent when they do card advantage stuff, right? Because if you are top decking and your opponent's top decking in the late game, when you have like the massive amount of ink, your card quality in, let's say, in traditional Ruby Sapphire is so much better than the opponents, right? So on average, you will win out. So that's not the thing about the card advantage here in for Ruby Sapphire, in my opinion. The filtering cards here are important. So because I know I will always end up in the top deck mode with my opponent. It's the nature of the game, because your hand size will always get smaller because you play out characters, and most characters don't get you a card back. So you lose a hand card, you will ink. That's automatically not -1, but you lose a hand card, right?
Yeah.
You lose a hand card due to inking. You lose hand cards due to cards that remove stuff like Brawl, or like, I don't know, Strength of Raging Fire, Zeus, whatever. You lose cards because you play something out that sticks on the board like Mana, Shark, whatever. So it's the nature of the game that your hand size gets lower and you both end up in top decking. And what I like about the filtering cards is, since you cannot reshuffle your deck is randomized, but it is determined, right? So let's say if your one shark was higher in the deck, but the last 3 sharks in the bottom 15, you still Of course, it's bad luck, whatever you can call. But at that moment, I still need to reach them if I need them, right? Or my last Pirate's Life or whatever, or my last Be Prepared. Or let's say one is on top, the last three are on the bottom. I still need to reach it. I don't want to lose this game because and use the excuse that's bad luck. So what I like to do is like even develop your brain. The power behind develop your brain is insane because besides the fact that you can use it in turn 1 and turn 2 with Seal, this is already insane that you can use it in turn 2.
Yeah.
Now you can, because we are ramping, right? It means a lot of times you have redundant ink. You just have open ink that you are not using. So now the run cost comes down now as a cost that is negligible. It's not impactful at all. It's not what people say when they talk about this card or nothing to hide or something like that. It costs something. It's not like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Upstart Goblin, you know?
Yes.
It's not like that because it has a cost. But the thing is, because we ramp, the cost itself is not important. And besides the fact that it synergizes insanely well with Shark, or like with 2 Sharks, you're just 2 cards more deeper than your opponent, right? Like a lot of time I get validated every single time I see like double Tipo or Tipo Brawl of my 2 cards with Develop Your Brain. 2 dead cards that I literally don't need. But now I'm just 2 cards deeper into my deck. I eliminated the top decks, these 2 top decks, right? My deck is determined. So now the chance that these are out now, and the chance that it's just high that I meet my cards, right? That I need. And I love it in the late game when my opponent's like top decking, playing a bad card, especially in the Mirror Match. This happens so often, like they top deck, play out Vitality's Field, pass. And I go like, my entire turn I didn't do much. Develop your brain, maybe Sail, Tala, pass. But then my hand looks like, okay, next turn I can do a lot of stuff because I filtered through and got the cards that I want. Now they top deck, pass again, and I start doing like Black Dark Mana, Pirate's Life, whatever, and start spamming again, like I'm just faster back into the game than my opponent. At some point, maybe when the game is at the point where your deck just consists of many threats, then it doesn't matter. You don't need the filters, you just spam threats each turn.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't think there is enough threats that you can run that justify just spamming your deck full of threats. So that's why I like to play it like this. Also because everything is basically at the place in my deck, right? I just get stuff naturally. Mm-hmm. So let's say I draw my Shark naturally before turn 4 most of the time, or because I use Develop Your Brain. And then I can do really crazy stuff because I happen to draw into my stuff naturally. For example, Pirate's Life, when you only play 2 or 3, you need to actually dig for it, and then you need to take it from vision. But for me, most of the time I don't have to because I got one already. Sometimes I take a second one, of course, because I can sing both or whatever, or I need to sing both. But then I can concentrate on other stuff. And another deck building thing here is also why I don't like to play Tamato in this list or in general right now when you don't run a full control version is you need Popsicle.
Yeah.
If you play Ruby Sapphire ever, you will have so many games where you use Vision and you have, let's say, a Hiram and Tamato in hand, and you literally cannot not take the Popsicle. You need to take it. Maybe you need a Bupra. Doesn't matter. You need to take the Popsicle. Else you die. You will lose. So
yeah, it's a 2-card combo.
Yeah, you are forced to take it because Tamato without Popsicle, even if you have infinite other items, is dead. Like it doesn't do anything. It's a vanilla.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to take it, and that's what I didn't like when I realized playing with 2 Tamatos, because then I just always took the better card, and then I inked my Tamato. So and that at some point I was just saying, okay, why do I even play it? Like most of the time I just inked him, and even if when I played him out, he got removed instantly, so wasn't even doing anything.
Yeah.
So now I just decide play without. Play 3 Hiram, not even 4, because I don't want to rely on Hiram. Sometimes I have like Popsicle up, right? I have Hiram in hand, but I realize, okay, this match is so fast, I cannot play the Hiram. And what I end up using is I use the Popsicle for heal and ink my Hiram. And yeah. So it's a completely different dynamics and stuff behind the deck that I also teach in my masterclass on Metafy that people don't really realize when just looking at the list. That's why when people are taking the list now and play, they will misplay. They will do the wrong lines because the dynamics in this deck are different. They ink way past 6 ink, which is not correct, because even something like Sail, as you said, it just replaces the hand, but in combination with a Shark, it's a gain 1 lore, draw 1, and because if you look at the structure of my deck, whatever you draw from Sail, you normally can use, because my deck is literally 4 cost, 4 X's, right? 4 cost X's, and if you need 1 more ink, you can ink maybe 1 more to play something like Let It Go. So it's like like 6 ink is like a good number to stay at, because and activate something like sail or visions, and then play a forecast or play a broad, whatnot.
Yeah. Your cost curve is really low to the ground, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's why it invites also different kind of plays. Because after 6, the next threshold is 8. Because I have so many forecast plays that I want to do 2 forecast plays, I don't want to do 1 Tamatora. I want to do Tala Mana or Hofago Mana, something like this. And then people often don't even guess the next threshold. They don't get it. The next one is 11. But yeah.
So is that Be Prepared plus some 4-drop?
Be Prepared Mana. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could do... yeah. I was like, there's a lot of places you can go with 11. There's a lot, because you could do Manor 8, 9, 10. So then you have almost all of your actions are online there too. Man, there's I see where you're going here. That's spicy. Ooh,
yeah. Took me a lot of games to figure everything out, but
that's pretty crazy. You can do removal in Pirate's Life. You could do Let It Go Maui Shark. You could do Shark and Maui regular. Oh my gosh, I see. 11's pretty spicy.
And then the only way to get there is the Haufago. And then I see people taking around, taking my list, and they play 3 Haufago. I'm like, I would play more if I could. I would play 6 or 7, 8 even.
Well, I mean, both of those cards off of How Far I'll Go do something. One goes into your hand and one goes into your inkwell. So you get ramp and draw.
Value.
Yeah. So it's, oh my gosh. Yeah, you basically get +2 because you play the card -1. Well, technically it's +1, whatever. Anyways, you know what I mean. So you look at 2 cards, you take the one you don't need, you ink it, you take the one you do need, and you put it in your hand. Like, how is that bad? And you can sing it. So you can sing it with...
Do you know... the thing that I also realized quite late, it was like 2 months ago or so, is literally when I started Lorcana, I was really jealous of the purple decks because they had friends on the other side.
Yes.
And I never realized how Fargo is just infinitely better friends on the other side. Infinitely better. Because you normally can always sing it because your bodies are always 4 or higher, right? So you can sing it. You get the 2 cards like friends, but it inks it automatically for you, so you get the ram. Oh, you don't need the 2 cards, like you want a ram, so it's always better. And now in this deck, just people always see a cost and unequal, and they're like, it's bricky, No, it literally says 0, cost 0.
Yeah.
Gain 1 lore, ink 1, draw 1, like like insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If Maui's online, you gain. Yeah, I completely agree because you're doing everything you could possibly want
0.
For nothing. You oh my god, yeah. You pay 0, you get a lore, you get a card, you get an ink. How is that bad? Yeah, that's better than friends by far. Yeah, absolutely. That's so nasty.
That's why Shark is not good in Ruby Amethyst. They don't have actions to even get back.
Ooh, tell me about that. How did you learn that? That's pretty cool.
Like just imagine here, when I start, let's say I stick a Shark for 1 turn, and now my hand is like a Visions or Devil Brain. I start a chain that involves like 3 to 4 actions. I could go bam, 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 back to back. Okay, and I'm a Ruby Amethyst. What are you gonna do with your Shark? First, it's getting dropped at turn 6 or later. And now you need a friends in your discard. And even if you get the friends, it's also not only like, okay, and then you gain the law, and then, but what else? Here, like people, that's the biggest mistake people have, as they see the Shark, half Shark, as action recursion. Like they read it, and it's evasive. Yeah, evasive is important, but the action recursion and so on, like, no, it's not. It's only the fear behind it. The fear that stops your opponent. That's the important part. And the law gain. The law gain is the most important part. And it's not important that it can recur actions. Like, I barely recur actions. I only recur actions because my opponent gets desperate and they start questing. And because if they don't, they lose. And if they do, they also lose. So it doesn't matter. Most of the time when I use Shark is literally standing there. I do my action stuff. And that's why Shark also doesn't really work in the normal Ruby Sapphire control. That's why everybody who plays 4 there and without Develop Your Brain is not good. That's why the French guys played 4 Develop Your Brain, 62 cards, I think, or 64, I don't remember. They played over 60 to fit the 4 Develop Your Brains, because then the Shark gets infinitely stronger, because then you can start the chain of actions, because right now when I play against the normal Ruby Sapphires, they have a shark out, they literally gain 0 or 1 lore only. And that's it. When I have my shark on board, normally I gain like 3 each turn. And if I have 2 on field, like then I start going crazy and then dig.
Oh my
and
god.
then sing Pirate's Life as the last action, and then I'm like 10 up. I had games where I went from 6 to 20. You know, I have shark, then both sticked. I had 8 ink total. I started going vision, develop your brain. How far goes? Sang one time, bam. Ended up with Pirate's Life. Sang Pirate's Life as the last one game. So this is the important thing.
Oh, that's dirty.
Yeah. This is the important thing, you know, and not the oh, I can't record. That's why people get baited into playing Vitality with the shark. There are good situations, don't get me wrong, but I realized really quick I don't want to do that. I so many times I often had the Vitality up and shark, and I could do it, but I still didn't really want to do it. Depends on the situation, because also you have to realize that against something like a Amethyst deck, you don't want to tap your shark out because they play crabs and evasive. So let's say they have a genie up, and now you rush into a snake. What does it do? They just trade back with your genie and your shark is gone. Or even if you heal up with Popsicle, your shark is now exerted. They just go crab on genie and trade your shark away. Now you lost the shark, everything quests out, and you are still out. So yeah, that's why I don't like the rush, like the recursion. I don't want to rely on that. My main thing about shark is the lore gain and the threat, like the fear of your opponent. You know, like they have to fear it, of course, but I don't mind if they don't quest or not.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to what you've been talking about this entire show, is understanding the tools available to you and understanding the value that a card brings. Because like you said, people say, oh, How Far I'll Go, that's a bad card. I don't like that card. Friends on the Other Side, much better. And you gave a prime example of why How Far I'll Go with a shark on board is much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
Even without him, it's
but
so
I don't
insane.
know if yeah, even without him, it's good. But like Shark pushes that card to the limit. Definitely.
You know, sometimes
but
I have like 8 ink. You know, I have 8 ink.
Yeah.
My opponent does a slow turn. I do double How Far I Go. I'm at 10, right? So now I'm at 10. Now what happens is my opponent pushes now, and I can go Be Prepared mana, because I was going from 10 to 11. So this is like the power behind How Far I Go is insane.
Well, it's a combination of consistency. It ramps your ink. It gives you card draw. You're still digging through your deck, and you have those thresholds you're trying to hit. So you can do stuff like, you know, Be Prepared Manner at 11 ink, or you're shooting for, like you said, your thresholds are like 6, 8, 11. And if your opponent doesn't know that, then they're going to be just kind of doing their own thing, playing their own game, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, Be Prepared, their board is gone, and now you have a McDuck Manor on board. You're going to get 2 lore, and they can't do anything about it. So they've got to try and reestablish their board. They've got to try and figure out how to deal with your manor. Your opponent has all of these like fires they have to put out, and you're just enjoying life because you can do whatever you want. You can, you know, play another card, you can dig, you can remove their options, you can play Maui's, Goofies. You just have all of the pressure off of you, and you still have a manor on board, so your opponent has to deal with this like slow lore burn. And 9 willpower is a lot if your board gets wiped with Be Prepared. That's a hard answer. Like that's just difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and yeah. The thing that people overestimate is what you also mentioned that a bit is even if you know about my game plans or know about the thresholds, what can you do? That's the important part. If you don't tech specifically out for the stuff I do, and taking these cards is really bad because the cards itself are really bad. Let's say Dragonfire for the Half Shark. Then like what can you really do? Like you can see my open, like you saw it, like open decklist didn't help my opponent at all. Like even the French guys, he like even though all the scandals and stuff, he's still a good player, and he tried his best to counter my strategy. But there's only so much you can do without tech cards, right? So even now, if you
Right.
tech for it, you need to hold. So like, it invites people now to do bad plays to counter stuff. Like, for example, I heard a lot in other podcasts on, yeah, you can keep your Maui Rushmores for manas and so on. Like, okay, so before Ruby Sapphire, the Ruby size before in the mirror match, they don't keep the hero to all, right? Because he's quite bad in the mirror match. So you ink him.
Yeah.
So now you lost a valuable ink resource because you have to ink other stuff to keep the Rush Maui. And the Rush Maui alone doesn't even one-shot it. So
no,
you need to keep even more to counter that stuff. And now I'm like, okay, how do you do that? You know? When before you're already struggling because you draw all your uninkables and now you have to ink your Tamatoas or what to keep the Rush Maus, you know? The same with Crab and so on. Now they always need to keep Crab and Fox in hand and ink other stuff. So let's say if I don't push with my manas, but I push with my Shark a lot first and with my Rush characters and gain the board control. At some point they need to play out the Crabs and so on or ink them to trade down my board. And then I play out the manas, and then so I took them to the route where they start inking their good cards because they need to keep the worst cards to counter my strategy. But at some point, they have to ink it or play it out, and then I play out my manas. I can decide when I put out the manas, and they have to react. That's why playing reactively is sometimes really bad. Because your opponent can decide when they want to do stuff, right? Let's say I want to hold Brawl for the entire game because at some point Hiram will drop. But then they don't drop Hiram until like turn 9 or so because they just simply didn't draw it or they didn't want to play it that soon. Now you hold the Brawl and you ink so many visions and develop your brains and so on, and now you're stuck with your Brawl.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't ink the Brawl. You could just use visions to find it again if you need it.
You are likely to not find it again. That's the problem. Like people overestimate the math behind vision.
I have faith in my deck. It'll prove. I come from Yu-Gi-Oh, so it's like I have faith in my cards. The Yu-Gi-Oh draw.
Heart of the cards.
The heart of the cards. Yeah, I believe in that. So it's like, it'll work. But yeah, if we're playing like an actual game, no, I would absolutely go for the math, not the heart of the cards. That's way too risky. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I love this deck because as someone who is a just hardcore control player, although I agree it is very much a mid-range deck, there are so many control tools in here. It's just gnarly. And it doesn't have to be like hard removal control where you're playing like Be Prepared, Dragonfire, Let It Go, like all these removal spells. But you can have ways to control the game with your manners, your sharks. They know you've got Maui Rush in your hand, so they've got to respect, doing something stupid, and all of a sudden, bam, he comes down and just claps cheeks. Super Goof is great because if your opponent's not paying attention, you can just get a quick 2 lore, and especially if you're at that 8 ink threshold and you're sitting at 16 lore and they've got multiple things that can be challenged. If you've got 2 goofs in your hand, it's over. So there's so many different thresholds of, okay, after, my opponent is sitting on 16 lore, I can't have 2 things tapped. Or I got to make sure if this thing is tapped, it can't be swung into by 2 goofies. Like it's got to have, 4, like 3 or less. Well, I mean, no, Goofy can't kill. So it's got to have 2 or less willpower. So you don't just get free lore. And then, of course, you've got Maui Shark. I mean, there's so many different lines of play you have to do math around. Yeah. What are they going to do? I don't know. Nothing.
Yeah, that's something that people need to realize that you can have the entire deck list of your opponent. Sometimes you cannot do anything when they just follow through.
Yeah. Oh, man. Pirate's Life is a 5-point swing because you get 3 off of Maui Shark on your side and they lose 2. Ooh, that's so dirty. This is nice. I like it.
And you pay 0 because you sing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's evasive, so their little ground units can't touch him. So yeah, he's probably gonna stick. Oh my lord, it's great. This is just so good.
Yeah.
It's fun. That's the biggest thing. You're having fun. It's consistent. It's aggressive, but it can be slower if you need to. Like you can kind of do whatever you want when you want to. Obviously, you want to keep gas on the pedal, but you're not playing a 2-card deck. Like it's a very Yu-Gi-Oh term where you have to have these like 2 or 3 card combos where if you don't have all 3 pieces, your combo just doesn't work. This deck can just kind of do a lot of different things in a lot of different manners, and that's cool. It's very toolboxy. It's very open ended. You're not forced into one singular line of play. You can do what you need as you
Yeah.
need it.
That's the important thing.
Flexibility. So before we get on out of here, because we're really close to the 2 hour mark, you were talking about Tamatoa and Popsicle and Faversham and Popsicle. Do you dislike cards in your deck forcing lines of play? Because now that we've talked and I've kind of been able to parse through the deck with you, it seems like nothing in this deck is forcibly a 2 card combo. Like technically Flaversham and Popsicle is, but you don't need to have both. Like you said, you could ink Flaversham, you could play Popsicle, you could do a lot of different things here. But with Tamatoa, you kind of have to have Popsicle, otherwise Tamatoa doesn't do anything. So are you looking for more cards that can be flexible versus multi-card combos? Even though the multi-card combos are very good, you're at the mercy of, if I don't see piece 1 and piece 2, I just can't do it. I can't use it at all.
In general, so that's the thing in Lorcana. What I realized really quick is you can do both. You can build your deck upon like many 2-card combos, which is basically the normal Ruby Sapphire control, right? The entire deck is basically 2-card combos or more. And you can rely on that, but I don't really like that. So what happens a lot is when you just play a certain amount of games, that's fine. But if you play like a ton of test games, it doesn't matter if online against other people or against yourself or not, against testing partner, I realized that I just happen to brick more often because of these, right? The more data points you have, the more you realize is that the 2-card combos are always risky, but they also have a high reward. Yeah. So for example, in my opinion, my runs always ended either because I bricked, which a few happened because I bricked, and some ended because I didn't have enough high roll power, I would say, in comparison to like half of my DSS I just bricked out in the last top cut match, but I think the other half would be my deck was really consistent, but I lacked the high roll. But the thing is like, I think the consistency brought me to that place to begin with, so I'm not mad at it. But I'm just have to point it out, I guess, that here in this deck I have high roll stuff, right? I can double ram shark, start singing infinite songs. That's my high roll thing. But I don't have like bot wipe high roll thingy like shift Sisu on 6 ink. I don't have that. But I have like other high roll stuff, and for me that was enough. Because I was the proactive deck in that case. And as you can see, my only 2-card combo basically is Hiram Popsicle. Everything else can be drawn singular and, like with other combinations. Like, doesn't care. It doesn't matter if I don't have Shark with the Haufago or like I have Haufago without Shark, I have Shark without Haufago. It doesn't matter. Both cards are super strong themselves and don't require anything else, right? I don't need anything with mana. It's only Hiram and Popsicle. That's why I only play 3 Hiram, and both are inkable. Popsicles I always play out, of course, but Hiram I can just ink, worst case, which I also do. If I draw like Hiram, no Popsicles, I don't try to keep him forever, right? It's like not rational to keep him just to get the high 2-card combo one time off, and it still doesn't even advance your game state because now you have a Hiram on board. But yeah, that's what I think about 2-card combos. I try to avoid them when building decks in all colors. Of course, some combos you need to play, like, I don't know, Shift Diablo or Shift Diablo Cove or whatnot. But if you can avoid it, I like to avoid it. You don't have to, but I like to avoid it.
Okay, cool. All right, last question. This is going to be a fun one, and then we're going to get on out of here. A favorite Disney movie? Do you have a favorite Disney movie or favorite Disney character of choice?
It must be Tangled, I think.
Okay.
Should be Tangled.
Cool.
Mainly because it's the favorite one of my girlfriend. And we watched it like, I don't know, 100 times.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, very cool.
Character? I have to think for a sec. Our character is Donald Duck.
Yeah, okay. All right. Very nice. Well, why don't you tell everyone again as we get on out of this episode who you are, where they can find you, and then I know you're working on content. Give us a hint as to what's coming up, what people can expect, because this episode is going to go up on, let's see my calendar here, February 19th. Okay. So we're recording this on the 10th, so next Wednesday. Or I'm sorry, the Wednesday after this week's Wednesday, the 19th. Yeah. So any hints, any spicy things you might be working on now?
Yeah, so again, my name is Ding Kang Pham, DKP. You might know me from all my tournament runs reports. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook to follow me live on my tournaments. I always try to be as detailed as possible. Now I also concentrate on doing like many tips and tricks posts, so you can just follow me and see and read what I post. And I do coaching on MetaFi, masterclasses right now on my decks, and also I will update them regularly now with more gameplay. I will like go to tournaments now and record my gameplay, which I didn't do before. And my content, my channel is DKP Lorcana, so that's my handle, but the channel name is still my name. I will concentrate on doing educational videos, like basically coaching. I planned a bit already, like I need to structure my ideas and so on, but so my main goal will be, if you are trying to get into Lorcana or you are already in Lorcana, but you try to get to the next level, like you want to do day 2 DLC and you need to learn all the concepts. Right now you click on YouTube and search for it. There's nothing. And my goal is to create this kind of content. And of course, because of my name and my successes and my results, people like to click on it more. So I'll plan to do like basically a library of knowledge on my YouTube channel where people can always go to check out like concepts and whatnot, and just in general concepts, learn from them. And if they want to dive deeper, they can hit me up on socials for coaching or like MetaFi. Check out my guides, because I will also upload a bunch of MetaFi guides where I go super deep into this stuff. And just in general, basically spreading the knowledge that I have myself. It's quite difficult because everything that I do comes really naturally for me and I don't really think about it. So it's really difficult to put it into words. But that's my main goal to reach. Like, so people want to start Lorcana, they look up YouTube, they see basically my playlist of things they need to know. They watch it all, learn it all, and then they go testing, they know what they do. And just improve in Lorcana, right? So that's my goal.
Okay.
How my channel should look like in, I don't know, half a year, in a year.
Okay, that's really exciting. Everyone who's listening and watching on YouTube, we will put links to DKP stuff in the show notes so you can check out all of his cool stuff. You can get connected with his coaching on MetaFi, and we will definitely be in touch to help kind of let people know about when your stuff comes out, help push it out there. And thanks so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. It's fun to talk about Lorcana with people at high levels, and I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, we're getting on out of here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. And here at Kado Games, remember, play games and have fun.